All right, so today we are going to talk about item loaders. So what are item loaders? So item loaders are, as the document suggests, a convenient mechanism for populating items, right? So it's a mechanism for populating items. So if you want to understand what is item loader, first we need to get our concepts very clear about what is item, right? So anything that you are yielding from your spider. So in this particular case, what we are doing is we are yielding a dictionary. So it's a simple dictionary. We are setting some fields and then we are yielding it. So this is an item. Now this item could have been a dictionary as it is in this example. It could have been a item class, right? It could have been a data class. So there are a couple of data types which can be used, but everything is item. Now let's look at the spider that I have written so far and let's see what are the problems, right? So first of all, let's see how the spider is working. So it's going to this books2script.com. Okay. Now do not be confused by the simplicity of this site. There are a lot of things that we can learn from this site. Okay. So the first thing that I'm doing is I'm running a loop over this selector. Remember that a response.xpath returns a selector, right? So let's look at this XPath. So this is the page and this is the XPath. So what this XPath is, it is actually a container outside all the books. So this is just one XPath that I took. You can have any variation that you like, but the idea is that it should be a container which repeats, right? Now we have one XPath which is for title. There is another XPath for price. There is one more XPath for availability. Now a title is straightforward, but let me show you what the price returns. Okay. So I'm just going to put a slash and paste in this. So you can see that, let me make it even bigger. This price is going to be this pound 51.77. Okay. So that is the currency which is embedded. Okay, let me hide myself. Yeah. So this XPath is returning pound 51.77. So what it means is it is returning the currency symbol and the currency value, both the things, right? So we need to write some code so that we can extract the currency separately and price separately. So I'm doing that I'll show it to you. Now let's look at the availability. Now availability is a little bit of a problem. So let me just put in this XPath first. Now here you can see that this availability is actually a paragraph element, paragraph tag. Okay. Inside this paragraph, there is another tag, which is I. Okay. There is this I element and it also contains in stock. Okay. So if we are talking about XPath, so this node contains this node and this node. So there are two different nodes, right? Now, so if I directly call text, so what will happen? It is actually going to extract two pieces of information. Okay. The first will be the text from this particular element directly. So this is going to return in stock, but before that, it is going to extract the text from this I element, right? So that's what it is going to return. And that is the reason what I'm doing here is, number one, I'm calling get all, right? I'm not just calling get, I'm calling get all so that I can get both the information. Then what I'm doing is I'm calling the strip so that extra white space is removed and I'm storing that result into a list. And finally, I'm calling string.join and I'm joining these parts together. So if there is any confusion in this spider so far, just let me know in the comments. Before we proceed further, what I have done so far should be clear. So this was about the availability. Now let's talk about the price. So what I'm doing here is to get the currency symbol and the price, the actual price and the currency symbol. We can play around with the regular expression, but the better approach, in my opinion, is this price parser library. Okay. So this is the library price parser. Okay. And this is actually, if I remember correctly, this is also by Scraping Hub. Yeah, so this is also by Scraping Hub. So these are the same people who created Scrapy. So this package is actually very useful. I've tested it in quite a lot of scenario. So what it does basically is there is this price class that they have written inside this package. Now this price class it exposes one method which is from string. Okay, so you can supply any string which contains the raw price, and then you can get the currency, and you can get this amount in float, and you can get the amount in string, and there are a couple of other methods as well. So this is actually quite foolproof. I've tried it with a lot of other different currency variations. So you can try this parser with a dollar, pound, rupee, or whatever currency symbol you have, even when the currency symbol is in INR or GBP or USD, something like that. If the decimal separator is comma or if it is period, in both the cases, it is going to handle perfectly fine. So it's a good package, right? So probably I'm going to create one video on what are the additional packages that I like to use when I'm writing scraper. So this is one of those packages. So basically the idea is that I've written custom functions which are extracting the price and currency symbol, and these things I'm calling them here. So I got the raw price. So this one is using this XPath, and I'm calling the get method, and it is going to return pound 19.75 or whatever. And here I will get this 19.75 as a float value. So it's going to be actual number. And here I will get the pound symbol. Okay. And that's what I'm yielding here. So let's run it once and see what we have right now. So Scrapy, I just called it before because I'm going to create an after spider as well. So Scrapy crawl before. So basically what I'm going to do is after the session, I'll share the code with you. So I'll share the before and after, right? So now if you look at this output, so probably you can focus on only any one of them. So let me make this even bigger, and here we go. So we have the title, right? So this is the title. Okay. This is the available. So it says in stock. It got it very clearly. The price, note that there are it's not a string. So I'm making it even bigger. Okay. So it's not a string, it's a number. All right. And the currency is a string, which is a very clean output. So that's why I like this package. So this is, so far, this is okay. But now if you look at the spider, what is the purpose of spider? The purpose of spider is to get the data and yield it, right? But what we have done, what we are doing here is we are writing a lot of code which is actually not part of scraping. So this is something these functions should not have been here. These methods, these functions actually, they should not be here. It's not the spider. For example, what if there is another spider? So they should move out of this place. Then this logic of all the cleaning up, this cleaning up logic is not supposed to be here. What should be there in the spider? Very simple. It should only contain the XPath or CSS selector, whatever you are using, and it should simply yield it, right? So our spider should be clean and it should not contain additional information. Now, just give me 1 second to open the items. Okay. So here we have items. So what I've already done is I created one items class, right? And why I did that is because once we create a proper item class, we can do a lot of cleaning up and manipulation in this item class very easily. So right now the structure is same, the title, price, availability, and currency, and these are all Scrapy field. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to import them, right? So we need to import this. So what we are going to do actually is instead of dictionary, we are going to use books item, right? And so where is import? Yeah. So that's why I like PyCharm actually. Just press option enter or alt enter and you will have this import edit directly. So there we go. Now the import statement has been added by PyCharm, so it saves a lot of time. So I could write that manually, but it saves a lot of time. So anyway, so now the only change that we have done is instead of dictionary, now we are using a proper item class. But if we run the spider, let's see the change in output, if there is any change. No, there is no change in the output. It's just presented differently, but basically the output is exactly the same. So now what we are going to do is we are going to move all that functionality to items class, right? All the cleaning up and all the other functionality to item class. So we are going to do that in small steps, right? So the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to remove these two methods. So I'm going to simply cut it, okay, and paste it here. So this I am pasting it in items.py file, okay. Need to import this, okay. What else do we have here which should not be there? So we will be taking away this logic as well. So I'm just commenting it out for the time being, okay. Now I could have used the XPath directly, but I intentionally created these local variables because I'm going to need these variables. So what we have to do is we are going to use item loaders. So what are item loaders? So item loaders are basically a method to load the data into items. So it's not very clear, right? What I'm going to say right now, what I'm saying right now, it's not very clear. I understand that. So I'm going to explain this to you. So what happens is that when you create, and just one second. Give me 1 second and just let me know if the stream is going okay. Yeah, I'm looking at the stream in my phone as well and looks okay so far. So let's continue. So what item loader do? Let's create one instance of item loaders, okay? So instead of directly creating the item class, what we are going to do is we are going to create one instance of item loader, okay? So item loader. Now where is this item loader? So let's import that. Import this name, and this is, as you can see, this is an item loaders, okay? So let me show you the imports as well. Here, there you go. So to import item loader, what you have to do is simply call from item loaders, import item loader, okay? Now in item loader, let's call this, you will typically see that the convention is to use just the letter L. So we can use just the letter L or we can use the loader, so it doesn't matter. But there are a few other things that item loader needs. Number one, it needs the instance of the item. Note, it is the instance of the item. So how do you get an instance of the class? So you use that class, okay, and use the brackets. So if I just leave it like that, what I'm supplying here is I'm supplying name of a class, but I don't want name of a class. I want to supply an instance of the item, right? So this is important. This is first thing. The second thing that we need to provide is we need to provide the response. Oops. The second thing that we need to provide is response. Okay, so this response is simply going to be this response. Or in this case, in this particular case, we are not directly working with the response, but we are working with this selector. So this selector, I just use the name S, but of course, whatever is the name you are using. So what you need to supply is the selector that you are using. And this selector obviously contains the response, right? So we do not have to provide response explicitly. By the way, I just press Command Option Shift, or on Windows you can press Control Option Shift L, okay? So what it does is it will bring up this reformat and so optimize, import, code cleanup, all these functions, and then just click on run. So this will keep your code clean and organized, right? So anyway, so now we have a loader instance of an item loader, which takes one instance of item and which takes a selector or response, right? So now we have loader. Okay. Now this loader exposes multiple methods which are very useful. So the method that we are going to use in this example is going to be add XPath. Okay. Now let me focus this here. There are three methods which are important. Add XPath, okay, add CSS, and add value. And what are these methods going to do? They will take the field name, okay, and they will take the XPath. In case of XPath, it is going to take XPath. In case of CSS, it is going to take CSS. In case of value, it is directly going to take the value, right? So what we are going to do, because in this example, we are going to work with XPath. So I'll simply call loader.add XPath. Okay. Now I need to provide the field name. So let's work with all the fields one by one. So the first field that we have is title. Okay. So this is the field name. The second thing that we need to provide is the XPath. So what is the field name? What is the XPath for the titles? So we have already created a local variable. So I can supply this. Okay. So I need to write this code after I have written. Yeah. So after the declaration of XPath, then I'm going to write this. Okay. So this is the title. The second thing is that we need to provide the price. Okay, so I'm just simply going to make a copy. In fact, I'll make two copy, becoming a little bit of lazy. So price. So where is this price? This is in price XPath. Okay. Now the currency is also in the same XPath. It's located in the same path. Okay. So I'm simply going to just make a copy and I'm going to use the same XPath. Now, when we are processing this, what we are going to do, we are going to extract the price part. When we are going to process this, we are going to extract the currency path. How we will do it? I will just we'll look at it just in just a moment. Let's make one more copy, and this time I'm going to take this available XPath, and the field is available. Now, in case you are wondering about these names, title, price, currency, and available, they must match with what you have in the items class. Okay. So this is title, this is price, this is available, this is currency. So it should match as it is. Okay. So I'm just going to copy and paste it here, right? But doesn't matter. I've already got it correct for the first time. So this is load XPath. Now what is happening in these statements? The item loader is going to process or apply some logic. And what is that logic? So that logic, so actually the item loaders use something called input processors and output processors, right? So yeah, so item processors, not item processors, item loaders, they have something called input processors and output processor. When you call add XPath or add CSS or add value, the input processor is executed. So whatever you have written in the input processor, that will be executed. And these are nothing but functions, right? So if you say that, okay, do this before you put it in the item loader, it will do it, right? Now, when the output processor will be executed, it will be executed when you call loader.load item. So when you call a loader.load item, what you will get is the instance of the item. Okay. And this then you can yield. So there you are, there you go. So this is the simple code. So now this is not required. So I'm going to just simply delete it, or let's comment it out for now. So now look at the spider. Let's look at the spider. So I created local variables for these XPaths. So that's why there are little 3 more extra lines. Otherwise, you will have only these many lines in your spider and that's it. Sheikh, I've already posted one video where I've covered web scraping with the C#. So just do a search on the channel and you'll find web scraping with C#. Anyway, I've some videos lined up on other languages as well. So I have some videos lined up for web scraping with R, with Ruby, with Golang. So I've already created the basic material. I just have to record the videos and I'll post them one by one. Anyway, so let's come back to item loader. So now just have a look at the spider. So nothing outside the spider, right? Name, allow domain, start URL. This is the standard stuff. We are looping through all the XPaths. And just because we have load item, what we are doing here, we are simply having a very clean spider. But right now, if I just run it without any change, so you will see some strange output, right? So let me show you what is that output, and that is going to help you understand few things, right? So there we go. So this is the output. Now focus on this output. Remember that when we call this method add XPath or add CSS, what is processed? It processes which methods are called, whatever methods are defined as input processor. Okay. So input processors are called on when the item is loaded, and when the item is retrieved using this load item function, output processor is defined. Output processor is executed. So the first thing that we need to thank you, Mario. You can probably just rewind a little bit. So that should help. Anyway, so when you call a load item, the output processors are executed. Okay. By default, if you do not provide any output processor, then you are going to get a list of string. So this is the first thing that you need to understand. Okay. So by default, if you do not do anything else, then you are going to get a list of strings. So this is similar to calling get all for each selector. So even though input processors are executed first, let's look at output processor because our input is largely okay. There are not much problems. So let's get rid of all this list of string and just get one single string. Okay. So what I'm going to do is let's go to this item class and let's import all these processors, right? So what are the different processors which are available? So let's look at that. So from item loaders, so these processors are actually part of, they are supposed to be used with item loaders. So that's why these are in item loaders module. Okay. So item loaders dot processors import. Let's start with take first. Okay. So this is the one that we need right now. So what we want to do is we just want to take the first value. So this is a list and we are saying that just take the first value and forget about the other ones. So this will solve this title. Now, how do we call that method? How do we specify? So when we are creating this title field, when we are in the Scrapy dot field as a additional parameter, what we are going to do is we are going to provide output underscore processor. Okay. And this is where we are going to call one more method. Okay. And this method is going to be map compose. No, for output processor, we do not want map compose. So I'll take that back. So here we are going to call this take first method. Okay. And note that we are calling the method. Okay. And why I'm emphasizing about calling the method and creating the instance, because that is going to help, that is going to, that is going to matter actually. So what we have done in the title, we have specified that use the first value and output that. Okay. So now let's come back here and let's run the spider. So let's see what's the output. Okay. And there we go. Now we can see that title is sorted out. So sorting out title was very easy. There is no other cleanup, nothing additional required. So we just said that, okay, take the first value and this is done. For these two also, we will be looking at extracting the first value. So we can probably call take first on all these, right? So what I'm going to do is, with the magic of copy paste, I'm going to apply this take first on all these fields, right? Now, there is a difference between get and take first. What is that difference? The difference is that when you call get, and if we, let me scroll up to the previous run actually before. So, all right. So let's look at this one. So here we can see that for the available, okay, just so I'm going to hold that thought about the difference because I need to do something else before I can explain you that difference. So anyway, now we can see that all the list, they are gone, and now we have standard strings. Okay, now in case of available, the first string did not have the actual availability. It was in the second value, second item of that list. So that's why that is gone. So now we need to do some additional processing here for availability. For currency and price, we are getting the same value because we have not yet written the logic to separate these, right? Title is done. For title, we do not need to do anything else. Okay. Now, should I start with price or availability? So in fact, let's start with price. So we already have these two methods written. So price and currency symbol, right? So, okay. Now this is where PyCharm sometimes irritates a lot. It wants exactly 2 line breaks between two functions. Anyway, so we have get price and get currency. So let me collapse this. So it takes the raw string value and this returns price, and this one returns the currency. Now, when do we want these to be called? So the output processor, we have already defined that you need to take the first value. So these functions can be called as input processor. And again, when our input processor called, as soon as you call the add XPath, those input processors are called immediately. So what we are going to do for the price, let's add one more line here, input processor. And this is where we are going to use the map compose. Now, and we will need a comma here because we have output processor as well. Okay, so this map compose is also something that we need to import. So this is also part of here. This is also part of item loader dot processor. So if you know about the map function, Sheikh, I do not have much experience in Python and I am working on Scrapy. So if you have any experience, like, of course you need to learn the basics first, but as you work more on any of the language, you will get to know that language in much better way. And by the way, as far as I am aware, I've worked in many programming languages. There is no tool in any other programming language which is as powerful as Scrapy. So I'm yet to find any tool which is equivalent in power, pure power. If you want to scrape dynamic sites, then in JavaScript, you will have Puppeteer and a Playwright. But for pure sites like this, Scrapy is, in fact, there are no arguments. Scrapy is best for web scraping. So, all right. So now what map compose will do, if you remember, let me comment it out, this line for just a second, and let me execute this price once again. Okay, so and I'm going to comment out this input processor, and I want to run this spider once more before I show you one important concept. Okay. So now look at this price. This price is a list. So if you do not have input processor or output processor, the price is a list. Now the first processor that execute is input processor. And this input processor is going to get a list, right? So if you call any function, that will not work directly because you need to call that function on each item. And that's why we need to use map compose. Come on, map compose. So this was a tongue of slip or slip of tongue. Anyway, so map compose, what this will do is it will take each item and apply the function on that. Okay. So what I'm going to do is we are extracting price. So in the map compose, we can simply specify this time. Remember, this time we are not going to call the function, but we will only specify the name of the function that needs to be executed. All right. So that's all we needed to do. Call this function on each item that you extract. Okay. So that's why all these functions that you are writing here should accept only one parameter and they should return only one parameter. Okay. Nothing else. So you cannot have one function that returns a tuple of price and currency both. So that is not allowed. So it should return only one value. So that's how this input processor will execute and it will apply on each item of the list, right? So if we had multiple values, from each value, this will execute this get price and you will get the price. But in the output processor, we have specified that ignore everything else, take only the first one. So that's why. So let me save this and let's run it once again. So this time we should have the price. There we go. Now we have the price. So now I'm assuming that you know what to do with the currency. So in the currency, we are going to use another input processor. Again, we need to call map compose. We always need to call map compose for input processor. Okay, and this time the method that we are specifying, again, note that we are not going to call. If I do this, it will break. Don't call the method, just specify the name of the method, and we need a comma here. Okay, and now let's run this, and this time we should have the currency symbol extracted very nicely and cleanly. There we go. Okay, so this is good. So far, everything is done. Now, the problem is resolving this available. Now, there are two ways, or in fact, there are many ways, but let's talk about one more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write these imports like this so that they are readable. So I'm going to call this join. Okay. Now what is this join? This join is very similar to in fact, it is the same join that you use in case of strings. Okay. So instead of take first for available, we are going to call this join method. Okay. So that is the only difference, only change that I am making. So it is simply going to club these two values, right? So let's see the difference. So this is the difference. Now, this was one value and this was another value, and these have been joined as one string. Okay. Now, optionally, we could have supplied additional parameter, let's say something like this. So if we run it now, we'll see that that string join will use this colon. Okay. But of course, we do not want it here. The other problem that we have is we want to get rid of this new line characters, right? So what we can do is we can call input processor here. And any guesses about what kind of input processor we should use? If I wait for your answer, it will take a long time, because actually when I speak and when you actually see it, it takes a little bit of time. Okay. So still I'll sounds logical. But will it work? Will it work just like that? In fact, I did not try it. Yeah, it will not work because we need map compose. And now we can simply call str.strip. See, sometimes we all make mistakes like this. So remember that I told you that input processor, they always need map compose, because input processor is going to receive a list, and map compose will make sure that whatever function you're sending here will be applied to each value. Okay. So this time let's run this, and I think the problem should be resolved. There we go. So we have these two values correctly extracted. Okay. But still I see this empty space here. So as this empty space coming, so that is probably because, let me scroll up and look at the previous run. Yeah, this is the previous run. So all the spaces from this string are not removed. So anyway, so we can write again some custom functions and take care of this. But there is one more thing that I wanted to show you. So instead of join, I'm again changing it back to take first. Okay. Note that we have a map compose, which is going to clean up this string, which is going to take, come on. So map compose is using this strip function, which is going to clean up the leading and trailing spaces and new line characters and tab characters. Now, instead of join, I'm using take first, and let's see the result. There we go. So now we have the correct value. You know, so this is the difference between get and take first. So when you say get, so if a selector is returning multiple values, and if the first value is null, even then the get will return null, because null or empty string. So if you just call get in your spider and that selector is returning a blank value, it is going to return a blank value, right? But this take first is actually going to ignore the null or empty strings, and it will take the first string that contains some value. Now, do you understand this, right? If you do not have understanding about, if you're not understanding what I have just explained, please ask me. This is the right time to ask, okay? The take first method or the take first output processor will ignore non-empty strings, okay? Yeah, so strings which are empty, it is going to, so let me rephrase that again. So I goofed up. So output processor, if you use the take first, it is going to return first non-empty string. So it is going to ignore all the empty strings, okay? In the previous case, so when we ran this spider, so I have to go a little bit up, and if you remember, okay, I have to go even, yeah, here. So the first string was backslash and spaces. What we did, we executed our input processor, which is str.strip. So if you execute str.strip on this string, what will you have? Backslash n will be cleared out, spaces will be cleared out. So what you will have? An empty string. So if you just call take first is going to completely ignore that empty string and give you the next string. So what is the next string? So this will be the next string, okay? Now in this next string, because we have this input processor, so this input processor has stripped all the spaces. So it has stripped this new line characters leading and trailing. Okay. So it will not clear the space which is in between. It will only clear the new line character, tab character and spaces which are before or after the data that we are looking for. So these are cleared by input processor. That's why when you call take first, the first string which is empty will be ignored, and the second string which actually contains the value, that will be returned. And of course, the second string is also empty, then it is going to return the empty string, right? So this was, man, it's been some time. Yeah. So I'm going to assume that the answer is yes, because it's been some time. But of course, I'm trying to remember when was the last time I worked extensively with SQL. So yeah, at least 3-4 years, something like that. So anyway, so now even if I work with SQL, it's a very light, basic SQL. So again, so this is the general idea about input processors and output processor. There is one more interesting thing that I wanted to show you. Okay. So I'm going to make a copy of this available XPath, and let's call this available XPath 2. And the change that I'm going to make here is I'm going to remove this /text. So now what this is going to return? So this is going to return the entire element, right? Because I'm not calling /text. So it will return the complete P tag. So let's come back here. And this entire P tag, including this embedded I tag and this in stock, everything will be returned. So this is what we will have in, so I need to hide myself. So here, so this P class is going to, this complete element will be returned by this XPath. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is let's make one more copy and let's call it available 2. And this is going to take available 2. Okay. So this available 2, I need to add as one more field. So this is going to be scrapy.field. Let me show you what we get if we do not make any other change. So let me show you what is the output, and then I'll show you a few other tricks. Okay. So in available 2, we are getting a list which contains the entire P tag, right? Now to get rid of this list, it's very easy. We can, in fact, let me just copy this. So if you just put output processor take first, it is going to get rid of that list. Okay. Now, how do I remove this P tag? And how do I keep only this in stock? So for that, we have one very useful function available to us. Okay. Now this one is in different module. So this is in w3 lib.html. And the function is remove tags. All right. So this remove tags now can be used as an input processor. There we go. So input processor, map compose, remove tags. Okay. And 1 comma. Is there any typo? Why it is complaining? Okay, typo. Map compose. So now what it will do, this value, okay, will be sent to this remove tags function, and this remove tags is going to get rid of this all tags. Okay, I did not want to paste in here. And now in the available 2, we are going to have the same value, which is we are just extracting it in a different manner. So again, we need to clean it up, right? So what we can do is, after we have called remove tags, we can call str.strip. So the lesson here is that map compose will call remove tags After that, it will call str.strip, both the things one by one. Okay. So now we should have a clean output, and there we go. So now we have clean output in available to. So the lesson here is not actually remove tags, but the lesson here is that you can send more than one function to map compose, but you need to make sure that they are executing one by one. So if you have some custom function which is accepting a string and returning a boolean, then it should be the last function, right? So they will be executed one by one. So that's all I wanted to talk to you about today. So that's all I wanted to talk about today. Now, if you have some other questions, I can take those questions. So, okay, code breaking. Okay, so you are stuck in Selenium. So that's what I understand. Code breaking. So you want to share what exactly the problem, what is the exact problem that you are facing? Or you know what? Do one thing. Um, Go to my site, coderecode.com. Okay. So sometimes I forget that, okay, I have to open this site on this monitor, not on the other monitor, which is not being displayed. So anyway, so what you do is you just go to this submit request page. Okay. And here you can write in detail what exactly the problem you're facing. By the way, I'm thinking about creating one session on, getting rid of this CAPTCHA. This is something going to be interesting. And this is actually based on my personal problem because I'm getting so much spam even when I'm having this, I'm not a robot thing, but still I'm getting spam. Okay. The number has come down, but still I'm getting this spam. So maybe we can see how we can, how these spammers are actually breaking this CAPTCHA. So maybe next time. Thank you, Mario. I'm going to upload. I'm going to upload this code. I'll upload it. So that I'll do. Thank you, Jagdish. So if that's all, we can probably end this session today here. Thank you, everyone. And thank you for being here. See you.